And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Subwindow. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange!
Orange 25! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. What is it? Put that in the big bag, Signal.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting with the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Welcome in, space fans, to the Space Coast and another NSF live coverage of Starlink 1224. I'm Gene Rowley. Good morning, wherever you are from sunny Florida. We are looking at Booster 1083 on its potential 12th flight here in just a little bit. We're going to bring you that launch. As you can see in the upper left-hand corner, just under 1 hour, T-minus 57 minutes and 56 seconds until we launch this rocket. Joining me today for this launch is to answer all your questions, Alejandro Alcantarilla Romera. How did I do, Alex?
Yeah, that's really nice. I mean, everybody here trying it out, right?
Good morning. Also in the field with the camera views, the one and only Max Evans. Good morning, Max. Is Max on
Good
time?
morning.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, of course I am, Gene. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, welcome back. This seems like a very rare sight to see nowadays with a Starlink mission taking place during the daylight hours. So taking this in and enjoying it while we can.
Yeah, it is. Is it me, or has it felt like it's been a long time since we've done a Starlink mission, but it's only been a couple of days, right, Alex?
For Starlinks, it's been a little bit longer because they have had customer missions, at least from the Space Coast, right? From Vandenberg, it's like Starlink after Starlink after Starlink.
Yeah.
But here from Florida, it's been about a week or so since the last
Yeah.
Starlink.
Feels
had
longer.
Another customer
just-
there in between.
Feels longer. Pressing the buttons in the control room, the one and only Jay Keegan. Jay, thank you for flipping switches and doing all of the magical things that you do. And thank you guys for joining us on YouTube and on X. Be sure to get your questions in at NASA Spaceflight in the YouTube chat. We've already got people sending in questions, and we've got folks gifting Red Team memberships, believe it or not, starting early this morning. This is Booster 1083 on its 12th mission. And it's been, I love the fact there's the overlay. I love the 40 seconds. Like, Alex, are you the one that keeps track of this? 31 days, 6 hours, 37 minutes, and 40 seconds.
Yeah, because today the T0 you might see on the SpaceX website, it says 9:05 a.m. Eastern, but what they don't tell you is those seconds, right? Because there are 60 seconds in a minute. Surprise, right? And so this one in particular, if they target that first sub-window of the window, they have this big 4-hour window, and then they split it in like little sub-windows or whatever. That first sub-window is 9:05 and 40 seconds. So that's why the turnaround time has those 40 seconds attached to it, because the last one was right on the dot at 00 seconds on that minute, right? But today, here, this T0 right now is 40 seconds. Knock on wood if it doesn't delay, but if it were to delay, I'll change my spreadsheet, and then Jay will probably change also that number as well. So
I love it. Talk us through the history of this booster, Alex.
Well, this is quite a history booster, because you see there, Crew 8 and Polaris Dawn, 2 crew missions. It's got another cargo mission as well at its name. You can see a lot of those missions there on Next Space Flight. There's a bunch of Starlink missions, 648, 656, 665, 13-1, which is actually the only Group 13 mission that we've seen launched, 12-17, and 691. But it also launched the IM-2 lunar lander, the Intuitive Machines Nova Sea lander, that second mission. Unfortunately, it also was sideways this time around, and also the Astraeus from one to many mission. Those 4 satellites for that company. So really nice history. 157 satellites launched so far. Hopefully after this mission it'll be 180. So ranking up all of those numbers and getting up there in the top of the tops, I guess.
This rocket is carrying 10 Starlink V2 minis and 13 Starlink Direct to Cell satellites. Max, you've been out there. I guess you know what the weather's like, but I'm not that far away from Florida, and we have had thunderstorms here in Alabama and rain and all kinds of stuff. It is just a sopping wet mess here. What's it like there on the Space Coast?
It's funny you say that because it's been very, very similar to that as well here, especially in the past week. I mean, as I've mentioned before in recent previous streams, that we are now well into the summer weather patterns here in Central Florida, which essentially means that every single afternoon between like 2 p.m. and 5 p.m., storms just come brewing up out of nowhere, picks up on the sea breeze, and they just build up literally out of nowhere. And it can rain anywhere from 5 minutes all the way up to hours. And it has been raining quite a lot. So at least as it stands right now, currently this morning, the weather tends to be a lot more stable in the mornings here on the Space Coast and for Florida as a whole usually. But we have mostly clear skies above our heads, and like we were saying earlier, a rare occurrence and a rare, I guess it's rare company to have the sun out during a Starlink mission. So we have that going on. But at the opening of today's window, the chance of violation for weather is only 5%, which basically is about as good as you can get. But as they push farther into the window, should they need it, the probability of violation goes up from 5 up to 30%, which is actually pretty significant because the atmosphere can become pretty unstable pretty quickly. But as we can see now, the weather is looking great here on the Space Coast and here at the KSC in particular. And as we can see, both with upper level winds, wind shear, and booster recovery, all of the risk criteria in that regard is low. So that's what we want to see, and hopefully SpaceX can utilize the window opening and get Falcon 9 off the ground today.
It's interesting in the shot that you have there on the screen. There's one bush like growing right up the launch tower. Any chance we're gonna come in and see some trimming? It's on our screen. It looks like a hedge, but it's probably a tree.
Yeah. So we're about 4.5 miles away from Slick 40 where we are here at the press site, and there's miles and miles of just shrubbery and trees in the way, obviously, as you can see between here and there. Shrubbery. Yeah, and honestly, I didn't notice that was even there until this morning because obviously at night it's a lot more difficult to see because it's all black until you're over at the launch pad and it's all lit up. So, I mean it's unfortunate the way this one nature. I remember a few years ago KSC and the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station partnered up to trim a lot of the shrubbery over there to give people at the press site a better view of Slick 40. Same with 39A many years ago. But I think it could use some more touching up. I think it's getting a bit out of control.
That's all right. We have the epic tracking cams from NSF that will, once that sucker gets off the pad, we'll track it all the way up. Let me thank Telstar86 real quick, gifting a Red Team membership. And by the way, if you receive a membership today during today's stream, be sure to say thank you. We want to be sure to welcome people, and we also want to be sure to mention people when they're generous and they gift those Red Team memberships and they become part of our NSF family here on YouTube and on X. So thank you guys for being here. Also, some folks are asking some really good questions, and we're gonna get to that point. Max, I'm gonna come to you first because I love this one. John Wick. I think it's a John Wick, not the John Wick. Hopefully, at NASA Spaceflight. This is my family's first launch. We are going to the visitor center. Which direction should we look? Now, I'm going to throw this one out there as a general answer. Max, you're going to fill in all the blanks. When you see the big fiery thing above the trees, look that way. How about that? Max, which is the best way to look?
Yeah, basically. So I'll answer this question in on two fronts, assuming you're either at the main visitor complex campus or if you're at the Saturn V Center. But assuming you are at the main complex, they have their own set of bleachers set up over off of Highway 405, which is right by actually the east gate to get into KSC, and that is looking essentially directly straight east. And you should see Falcon 9 climbing over the trees just a few seconds after liftoff at that point. When that time comes, it's kind of hard to miss. So as long as you're looking east, you should be in decently good shape. As well if you're over by the bleachers that they have set up over there. It's a great view for launch. If you are at the Saturn V complex here inside KSC, you'll be looking more towards the southeast, and you should see Slick 40 sticking up in between LC 39A and Slick 41. And obviously, once Falcon 9 gets off the ground, it's kind of hard to miss. But assuming you are at the main campus, as long as you are looking straight east over where the bleachers are set up, you should be in really good shape.
There you go. John, thank you for being a member for so long of NSF and being part of our family. Great question. For those going down to the Space Coast for the first time, you can see on the screen there which way this launch is going to go. And of course, it's going to be heading southeast, passing northeast of the Bahamas, heading in that's kind of where the Falcon 9s go, unless they're going for a different inclination, which this one's going to. I'm stealing Alex's thunder here. 283 by 292 kilometers at 43 degrees orbit. How did I do, Alex?
Yeah, that's correct.
Nailed it.
That's essentially Group 12, right? They launch to 43 degrees, and so they go southeast. The weather there should be better. Maybe it'll get a little bit worse in the summer, and maybe they'll start doing again northeast launches. So if you're up the coast, don't fret. You might get some of your launches up there soon.
We talk a lot about the future of Falcon 9 with the Starship program. I don't want to say ramping up, but continuing its pace. We see a lot of development in Florida for Starship, but Severin wants to know, at NASA Spaceflight, do you think there will ever be more Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy launch sites? Also, crewed launches from Vandenberg, SSO missions, things like that. Alex, what do you think about that? You think the cadence of Falcon 9 has kind of reached its capacity, or are they planning to build more and more and more Falcon 9 facilities while we're waiting for Starship to get to its full potential?
Not at Florida, but yes, at Vandenberg. Right now, they are in the process of getting Space Launch Complex 6 at Vandenberg, sort of to complement Space Launch Complex 4 East, essentially. So you'll have 2 pads on the East Coast, 2 pads on the West Coast. And right now, they want to have at least potentially a maximum of 100 launches per year from Vandenberg. So now couple that with roughly the 100 launches per year that they're going to get here from Florida this year. Because right now, they are more or less on track to have 100 launches from Florida. That means we are in for potentially, maybe in the next year or so, to get Falcon 9 to a capacity of 200 launches per year. And I think that's going to be the maximum that we're going to see. Once it reaches that 200 launches per year capacity, then we're going to see a ramp down. Because at that point, that's probably going to be, 2027, right? Or something like that. And then we're going to see a ramp down in that sort of cadence, and Starship will take over eventually. But that's a lot of launches, right? We're talking potentially another 100 launches this year, because they have already done roughly 70 of them, and they're targeting 170. So that means another 100 launches, right? From Falcon 9, plus 100 and something, almost 200 next year, potentially another 200. We're talking potentially another 500 launches before even Starship takes over. It's mind-blowing. But again, no more launch pads at the Space Coast, unfortunately. Eventually Starship will take over, and they have lots of plans for that. We've got a Starbase update episode that was released yesterday, talking about all of the stuff. About, Space Launch Complex 37, all the plans that they have for that. I'm writing an article if you're more of a lover of the writing form, right? Rather than the video format. But that's essentially what they're planning. They're planning 2 launch pads for Starship at Slick 37, plus the one at 39A. We're going to have lots of activity here from the Space Coast.
Speaking of Starship, I was wearing I made it to Seco shirt from the Flight 9 that we released during Flight 9 the other day. I bought the orange one, everybody. Yes, it's orange. I finally had to get an orange one. And if you want to check out any of the merch from NSF, go to shop.nasaspaceflight.com. There's a lot of fun stuff out there. There's my shirt. I made it to Seco. Good old Flight 9. You can get it in many colors. Lindsay's been doing such a great job at changing the colors, and our whole NSF store team has been doing a lot of stuff. I got some more patches. I bought some stickers for my truck. But Father's Day is just a couple days away. And if you need a last minute gift and your father in your life is a rocket fan, go on out to shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Check out the Father's Day stuff. A lot of great stuff out there. Patches, Hawaiian shirts. And the gift cards. Last minute gifts, Father's Day, birthday. The gift cards are instantaneous, by the way. I love gift cards. My wife made me buy the shorts. Keep scrolling down. Yeah, I had to buy the blue shorts. She said, "You bought the blue Hawaiian shirt. You don't have the shorts." So she forced me to buy the shorts yesterday. So now the blue ones, not the red ones. Yeah, those. So I'm all decked out. Next time I go on a cruise or on vacation, I'll be wearing my NSF Hawaiian merch. And I'll take a picture and send it to Lindsay. She can freak out about it. But yeah, we appreciate you going out there and just having fun on our store. There's a lot of great stuff. If you missed any of the patches, you can always get them in sticker form. They're available there. Launch in the summer. And by the way, you can see some of the NSF crew are the models. If you want to know what people look like that are rarely on camera, there you go. Some of them behind the scenes are out there modeling stuff. So we have fun with it. And as Alex mentioned, if you're more into articles and you want to read what's going on, check out the NSF weekly newsletter. It goes out every Monday at 7 p.m. It covers live schedules, special offers, NSF updates. And you can also go out to nasaspaceflight.com, check out all the great articles. And they had talking about all the future of spaceflight, current news, things like that. There's a lot of great stuff out there. So we're coming up. By the way, why does it say, Alex, T minus 42 minutes? I thought that we were doing the opening of the window in 42 minutes. Is that accurate? Or do we have hey, this sucker's taken off right at the opening of the window? Have we gotten that word?
Well, as I mentioned before, right, they have this 4-hour window, and then that window is sort of partitioned in little windows. I call them sub windows, right? And so right now they're targeting the opening of the first sub window. It says there on their website 9:05 a.m. Eastern, but they send these lists of sub windows and things like that to some of the tracking sites like Celestrak and whatnot. Like they put it out there so that other satellite operators are aware of these Starlink satellites when they go into orbit. Because believe it or not, being aware when you have lots of those satellites up there, being aware when they are there, right? It's really important. You're launching 23 at a time. Sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes it's a little bit less, but still more than 20 satellites at a time. You need to track them and everything. It takes a bit of time, right? If you know ahead of time when the launch is happening, when is the deployment of those satellites, what is the orbit that they're going to be reaching, these other satellite operators can move around sort of their assets and things like that to, get out of the way of the Starlinks. And that way there's no conflicts in space, if you will. And so that's why they have this sort of list that they send to these places so that other operators are aware when they are launching and whatever. So that's why we know that the T0 right now, it seems like they're tracking 9:05 and 40 seconds a.m. Eastern. That Subwindow in particular actually takes up to 9:09 and 59 seconds, but right now we are assuming that they're just targeting the opening of that little sub window, as I said, the first one in that list. There are 6 right now, as far as we know.
As we're coming up on T minus 40 minutes to the opening of that window, where are we in the timeline, Alex, for this Falcon 9? As it comes up on the screen, talk us through what's happening right now in the launch pad and what's happening in mission control, etc.
Well, when they get close to, at T minus 35 minutes, as you see there, it says stage 1 RP1 load begins, stage 1 Lux load begins, stage 2 RP1 load begins. In general, it's when they start propellant load, right? They just, leave the stage 2 Lux load a little bit later into the window. And so before any of that happens, that's an automated sequence, right? They even call out on the nets, launch auto sequence has started and whatever. So before any of that happens, they need to conduct a go-no-go poll to make sure that everything is ready. Because once they hit T-minus 35 minutes, it all runs automatically, right? Like just the whole computers, they run all of that automatically, and you can stop it at any time, but then it means you need to go back again to that T-minus 35-minute point. And so it's a mess, right? So they need to make sure that everything is go for that propellant load. And that's why they have this sort of pull sequence. The launch director then eventually, after they come out of that pull, they say, okay, it's go. We'll go for propellant load. Now, what happens if they don't go for propellant load and they have to wait? Then they'll move the T0 later into the window, right? It's a 4-hour window. And so they have plenty of time. They have multiple opportunities in this window. And obviously, we don't want that to happen, but they could in theory, right? What if they do go for propellant load? Unfortunately, we don't have any communications from SpaceX, right? Like, we don't have the usual good old mission control audio that we used to have back in the day or anything like that. So we have to trust either that SpaceX will put it out on X or that we eventually see the frost on the booster, which roughly takes place around T-minus 32 minutes, 31 minutes. So that's more or less what we should be doing in the next few minutes, which is looking at that booster getting frosty.
And that's what we want to see. Of course, you can see the black part, the bottom part is very sooty. This booster's on its 12th mission potentially here in about 38 minutes. Nibbles coming in, gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Thank you so much for your generosity. Nibbles, we appreciate you getting out there and bringing more people into the fold for NSF, bringing them into the family with NSF. Let's see. Luca wants to know, Alex, at NASA Spaceflight, can Falcon 9 launch in the rain? It can, because I think it's mostly lightning and wind. Right, Alex? That's the problem?
I mean, in light rain, it probably can. We've seen moments where, it was raining a little bit and it still launched. I don't think that's really that big of a deal. And technically, launching it in fog, that's pretty much almost rain, right? Because you're flying through a cloud, but it's sort of on the ground. But, leaving jokes aside, it is true that, a little bit of rain, a little bit of clouds, that's okay. The problem is when you have those thick clouds, the cumulus clouds, the anvil clouds, all of those that look angry at you. Like you're looking up the sky and they look back at you and they're like, right? They look angry, essentially. I know it's a very absurd way of putting it, but I think a lot of people watching right now might get what I mean, right? These really thick gray clouds that really are looking for trouble, essentially. And so when the rocket flies through those kind of clouds, it can trigger lightning, and you don't want that sort of thing on your rocket. If it's some light clouds, some light rain, it's okay. It's not gonna break your rocket or anything. It's totally fine. So that's why sometimes when even the weather is horrible and there are thunderstorms 10 or 15 miles away, sometimes it might be good around the launch site and around the path of the rocket. And so you never know, right? And so sometimes we've seen them with only like a 20% probability of good weather, and then they thread the needle and they launch, and I don't know how they do it, but man, it always happens. Like it's becoming rare that they scrub for weather these days.
Well, Max has been out there when it's freezing cold. Max has been out there when it's raining. Max has been out there when it's 1,000,000 degrees. Max is used to the weather in Florida, right, Max?
Yeah, and I've been living here for a little over 3 years now. So at this point, I would say I'm well acclimated, and honestly, I prefer it compared to where I grew up from, especially in the winter months. I certainly prefer this weather. Absolutely.
Well, it's a nice day out there this morning for this launch. It's going to, obviously you can start to see a little bit of the heat distortion, but it's not too bad, right?
Not just yet. It's still early in the day, only 8:30 a.m. here on the Space Coast of Florida. But the sun is right in our face, so that's why Falcon 9 almost looks like it's a silhouette right now. Is because the sun is mostly behind it, as opposed to being like above our heads or behind us and offering a better just offering better light onto the pad. But once it's in the air, the contrast between the body of Falcon 9 and the very bright exhaust from the RP1 and liquid oxygen should become very apparent.
So I want to ask for all the camera nerds out there, do you have like a standard setup that you do every time you go out there? Because we see very similar views, right? But do you just have like, I know where everything goes and where everything's plugged in, or do you just kind of get out there and say, today I got a new piece of kit, I'm going to try this?
Usually it depends on if D is here or not as well, because normally we cover stuff together
Mhm.
as well. So obviously D has 3 cameras of, I think 3 or 4 cameras usually for streams, and normally I run up to 2, and these are just bespoke gear for NSF. And any other gear that I normally have deployed is either usually for photos or additional footage elsewhere. But we have a Panasonic BGH1 and then just a Panasonic broadcast camera here set up right next to each other, offering a tight perspective and a wider perspective here. And the tight perspective that you see here now is just the BGH1 from Panasonic, which actually is a really good camera for live streaming. It has done us very well, and obviously the views that you can see today from it are pretty clear. So it all works pretty well.
Yep. Coming up on T minus 33 minutes for the Starlink Group 1224, and Bideford come in with the super chat. Thank you, Bideford. Good morning, gentlemen. Is NSF covering the Axiom launch tomorrow? Best way to start the day is NSF launch coverage. Hugs, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you for that generosity. Alex, we're going to talk a little bit about Axiom, because this probably isn't the Falcon 9 launch people thought they were going to see from NSF this morning. Do we have a quick update for everybody?
Yeah, so the Axiom mission, there was a little bit of bad weather in the ascent corridor because, they go northeast for that Axiom mission. They're going to the International Space Station, so they need to match the orbit of the station. So that's a 51-degree inclination orbit. That means it sort of goes northeast out of the Cape. And therefore, all of the weather up north on the northern Atlantic, it needs to be good. And unfortunately, it's been a bit of a not so good weather downrange, and so that doesn't impact things like the recovery of the booster because it's going to come back to land on the Axiom 4 mission. But unfortunately, if something were to happen, we don't want that to happen, of course. But if something were to happen on the ascent and Crew Dragon needed to escape, they need good weather, right? Doesn't need to be in the entirety of all of the abort zones and everything on all of the ascent corridor. Dragon can sort of manage its way and choose another location with better weather and everything ahead of time. But if too many of these places have bad weather, then they have to postpone, and that's pretty much what happened here due to high winds in the ascent corridor. Therefore, that is not something that you want when you're especially coming down with parachutes, right? Like Dragon uses parachutes for landing, and so you don't want high winds. Now, there's a few other things as well that happened that were revealed yesterday on a pre-launch press conference, which was that booster from Axiom 4, it's got a TVC issue and also a leak on liquid oxygen side as well. I think it's a liquid oxygen side, if I'm not mistaken. And so those two things, they were working on it. They were trying to work it out over the night. They think they're going to get it done before the flight, though, so it shouldn't be a concern. But, we got to wait. There's usually these sort of launch readiness reviews that they do roughly 24 hours before the flight. So it might be happening right now. Who knows? We don't have that kind of insight, unfortunately. But don't be surprised if perhaps, something comes out after this and it says, you know what, the weather is still bad, or we need a little bit more time on the rocket, etc., etc. Like, I wouldn't be surprised about that kind of stuff. It's a crew mission. They're going to take all precautions, right? And so, stay tuned. If they say anything, we'll put it on our social media as well. We'll share it everywhere. And so, just saying.
And
That's exactly what I was going to say.
We
Oh,
should
go ahead, Max.
hopefully, yeah, no, it's all good. I was just going to say that we should hopefully know something by about noon Eastern time here today, because assuming all is on track, the media pool is going to be heading out to the pad later on this afternoon to get cameras put down for launch tomorrow morning. So, but we should know if they opt to not push ahead with launch tomorrow. Then we will not be going out this afternoon, but we should know more with an update hopefully becoming before hopefully before noon, ideally around like 10 or 11 o'clock.
And that's what I was going to say is that this would be a great time to go and check and be sure that you're linked in with all of our socials on X, on Facebook, on Blue Sky, on everywhere. Get your notifications up to date because every time we get an update on a launch, any changes, anything that pushes to the right, we're going to let you know immediately. You can also check out Next Spaceflight app powered by Flight Club data, and all of the space launches are out there. So, stay linked with us here at NSF because as soon as we know something, we are going to tell you as well. So we're just under T-minus 30 minutes. And Alex, if you just look past the tree there, is that frost?
Yeah, you can start to see that frost building up. Max, how do you see that from your point of view? Because I imagine that it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I have the monitor for this camera like right next to my head to make sure I have a good view of it. But this one pesky tree is in the way. But just behind the branches there, you can see a bit of condensation there and a bit of vapor coming off of the tank structure of Falcon 9. So prop load is well underway at this point.
Nice, Alex, and that means that look, what the propellant is loading in the booster. And here in just over 8 minutes, we should see them starting to chill lines up the tower, etc. Right?
Yeah, we're locked in now for that T0 at 9:05 and 40 seconds a.m. Eastern, and so everything proceeding just as we expected. As you can see there, right now, first stage, both propellants being loaded, RP1 kerosene, and that liquid oxygen there as well. On the second stage, RP1 load has begun as well. That'll wrap up around 8 minutes from now, and then we'll see the logs chill down. All of that preparation for the stage 2 liquid oxygen load at T-minus 16 minutes. So, a few more minutes, we get this bird up in the air, hopefully.
Adrian comes in and says, at NASA Spaceflight, maybe we should ask for Roger the Shrubber to come in and trim that tree for NASA. Yes, we need Roger the Shrubber. Shrubber. Adriano, thank you for that support. How much for magnetic print patches for my fridge? Is that possible? I don't know if they're going to be metal, but we will get. You can ask. You send in suggestions for the shop, and they may or may not do them. I think launch patches, fridge magnets, or something like that would be kind of cool. I think that would be neat. That's a great suggestion. Nibble's coming back in with some more support. 10 Red Team memberships. Nibbles, thank you very much. And again, if you get gifted one of those memberships, be sure to say thank you. That's their real life money. They're bringing in, helping you join the NSF community. Also, guys, be sure to keep getting those questions coming in at NASA Spaceflight, and we will get to as many of them as we can. We're not going to get to all of them. And we've got about 26 more minutes before they're targeting the opening of that window and a launch. Let's see. Jonah wants to know at NASA Spaceflight. This is a good one. What is your favorite Falcon 9 booster? Alex, do you have a favorite?
I used to have a couple of favorites, but they got either destroyed or expanded. B1046, for example, was epic because it was expanded / destroyed, I guess, on the in-flight abort test. 51 and 58, of course, the demo 1 and demo 2 missions for Crew Dragon. Right now, I would say actually the newest ones, they look so shiny and so new. So I don't know, it's like wow.
Max,
you don't
do you have a favorite
appreciate
booster?
it enough.
Yeah, the new boosters. Yeah, Max, do you have a favorite?
So of the entire fleet, even those that are either decommissioned or destroyed, 1058 is my all-time favorite, of course, with the famous worm and meatball logos on the booster. And the only booster to have those logos on it was unfortunately lost at sea a couple years ago now, almost a year more like a year and a half. But overall, 1058. But in terms of active boosters in the fleet, 1077 for sure is currently my favorite booster, just due to a personal connection. But I will leave it at that.
I don't know that I have a favorite booster. I think my favorite booster is the one that we're watching launch at the time. I really don't follow them as closely as say Alex does, or Max does, or D, or Adrian, anybody else, Sawyer. But I just like to see rocket launches. I think my favorite one is the one that's on the screen, and today that one is 1083-12. I just love to see them. I love to see them land. To be honest with you, I think for me that was always science fiction. And launching rockets, and then we never see them splash in the ocean. We never see them burn up, whatever. But to watch them come back and land, is always so exciting for me. And for those of us that have been watching NSF, or now part of NSF, or been in the community for a long time, we kind of you skip you skip to the launch, you skip to stage SEP, and then you skip to the landing. You just kind of, and then you're like, okay, I'm done, and you've watched the rocket launch. Don't do that, guys. Stay with us. Watch the entire thing. I also love RTLS missions. I don't know why, but I love RTLS missions, and I can't wait, Max, to get down there in Florida and just kind of hang out with you and D and Sawyer and just hear it from myself and see them come back and land. I don't spend enough time on the Space Coast. I'm usually broadcasting from here, or I'm going out to Texas for a Starship mission. So once Starships, I think, start launching from Florida regularly, you'll see me down there hanging out with you guys more, and I think that's going to be a ton of fun.
I hope we do.
T minus. Can you imagine Starship launches from Florida? It's going to be epic.
I've been thinking about it for years, Gene, and we are getting closer and closer to it coming to reality. Hopefully by the end of the year, but if not by the end of this year, definitely, hopefully within the first couple quarters of 2026.
Hop Hayes says, at NASA Spaceflight, B1083 best booster, and the first launch I saw in person. Always awesome to see it fly again. And yeah, launching for the 12th time potentially today in just over 23 minutes. There's some chatter going back and forth, guys, in YouTube, which I'm not watching the YouTube chat. I'm watching the questions come in. I think Chris B is in chat raising a ruckus about tea or something, tea towel. I don't know. What is going on there? I see his name popping up. Chris B is awesome. Horses are wonderful. Yorkshire tea. There's a whole conversation going on in the background that I have no idea what's going on. If you guys don't put at NASA Spaceflight today, I'm not going to see it. Let's see. United Federation of Moons at NASA Spaceflight, in at the beach at Titusville. Weather looks perfect but very hazy. Max, would you agree? It looks normal to me. I can't really see a bunch of haze, but you're not in Titusville, right, Max?
Correct. We are currently stationed over at the press site over at the Kennedy Space Center, so we are fortunate enough to have a front row seat. But considering the time of day now, where if you are on the coastline over in Titusville, or if you're at, say, like Playa Linda Beach, because that should also be open as well, or even Cars Park, just because of where the sun is at, the entirety of the Space Coast right now, at least the launch pads, are completely backlit. So it doesn't necessarily look the best, especially if you're far away, where you have both the backlit conditions and then also all the atmospheric distortion on top of that. It's not really the most visually appealing scene. So it can be a bit hazy out there, but for us here at the press site, luckily, it is not so hazy. But it probably will be for anyone who's off site, for sure.
I have no idea what they're doing. Chris B is really starting things. He's riling things up. Yes, it's all at NASA Spaceflight Chris B's fault. They're discussing tea now, apparently. So, I mean, we're about to watch a rocket launch here, guys. You guys are discussing tea and tea towels and all kinds of fun stuff. Michael, who is currently at Cars Park, can confirm it's a little hazy at Cars Park, just like, what you said. But I think one man's haze is another man's haze, right?
That's certainly a statement, Gene.
There's some more there. Pete, yeah, more likely to see NSF merch wrapped around a horse. Chris B. Chris, what are you doing? You should just jump in and talk to us. You got people talking about all kinds of fun stuff. Keep the questions coming in at NASA Spaceflight. And if you're just joining us, by the way, welcome. We are NSF, and you are looking at Falcon 9 launching from Slick 40, Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. It's the Starlink Group 1224 mission. This one is carrying 10 Starlink V2 minis and 13 Starlink Direct to Cell satellites. And we are coming up on T minus 20 minutes. And Alex, you can tell us what that is coming from the tower.
Yeah, that is the T minus 20-minute vent. That is the LUX chill down vent. It prepares the Strongback to essentially start the liquid oxygen load on the second stage there, as you can see on the left, at the T minus 16-minute mark on the countdown. So essentially about 3.5 minutes from now, more or less, we'll see that vent fade away, disappear. That's going to be our clue that LUX load has begun on the second stage. Because remember, they're loading both propellants on the first stage, both kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen oxidizer on the first stage. And then the second stage has already wrapped up that RP1 load, right? That kerosene tank on the second stage is now completely full, and they're stepping into preparations for liquid oxygen load. So that's going to be the next thing to be fueled here.
Why do they have to chill down the vents? I know people in chat are like, Gene keeps asking the same question. It's for the people that are here for the first time, guys. We want to make sure everybody understands what's going on and why these timelines are important and why SpaceX does things a certain way. We don't have any inside track, but we've seen enough of these to know that these things happen at certain times so we can kind of gauge the future. But we also want to know why they're doing this. There's a lot of technology going on here. So Alex, tell us why they chill down these vents and slowly get the temperatures where they want them.
Yeah, so, Florida, whatever temperature it is, it's definitely hotter than cryogenic liquid oxygen, right? That liquid oxygen is loaded around minus 200 degrees Celsius. I think that's roughly minus 330 degrees Fahrenheit. Very cold. Anything with a minus in front of it, it's cold for me, whether Celsius or Fahrenheit. And so it's very, very cold, essentially. And so you've got all of those lines at ambient temperature, whatever temperature it is in Florida. Again, it's way hotter than the fluid itself. So if you don't do this kind of process, you're essentially subjecting your GSE, your ground support equipment, to all of these sort of, shock, thermal shock, and also at the same time the oxygen evaporates because you're getting the metal cold on the transport reactor, but also at the same time the oxygen warms up, so it also turns into a gas in a very enclosed space. And so that could be a very bad day for your hardware, right? You don't want that kind of thing. And so what they do is they precondition, they lower the temperature before that by flowing a little bit of that liquid oxygen through. With that vent, what they're doing is venting out that gaseous oxygen that I just said that gets produced. Because again, the metal itself, the pipes and everything get cold, but that means the oxygen gets hot, right? That's how it works, essentially. And so it gets hot, it boils off, and therefore you need a way to vent that off, and that's what the vent is for, and that's why we see it. That is also why, when that vent stops, it's a clue that they have begun liquid oxygen load, because if you keep venting it while you still are loading it, then you're really not loading it. It's just escaping everything, through that vent, right? You need to close the vent first and then load. And as you can see, it stopped now, or at least it's sort of dying off.
In the South, we call that petering out. That vent is petering out. T minus 16 minutes. And as you see, we call it the 20-minute vent, but that's their chill down vent going up the tower. And once that ends, they are going to start that load, as Alex said. And there's some great questions coming in, guys. Keep the questions coming at NASA Space Flight in the YouTube chat. Some really, really good ones. But I want to say happy birthday, Dalton. Today's my birthday. Well, there you go. Happy birthday, Dalton Cushing. Thanks for joining us for this Falcon 9 Starlink mission. And also Kevin coming in. Hi from the UK at NASA Space Flight. I watch people stream who use Starlink, but they wanted to know about it. I have a Starlink. I know we use a couple of Starlinks. Why are they still sending so many up there? And I think you answered your own question, because sometimes in certain directions, it doesn't, I don't want to use the word struggle, but sometimes it's got to keep those satellite links. And mine is constantly updating. They're constantly doing updates to the Starlinks But the idea was, Alex, fill me in here, weren't they shooting for like 30,000 Starlink satellites in orbit? But I think that number's come down with what we're now calling, I guess, the V3s, or they're still shooting V2 minis. Obviously, we're launching ones here today. But once once Starship goes, they're going to start doing the larger satellites, which we still need to see a demo of the Pez dispenser and so on. But I mean, originally they wanted like 30,000 Starlink satellites, right?
And they still want
Do they still want that?
yeah. They still have that. They're not approved for that though. It's a long story, but essentially there's like two generations of the satellite constellation, not the satellites themselves, but like the orbits and shells and whatnot. The first one was roughly 4,400 satellites essentially. And then the second one, which includes many of these satellite launches that we see with V2 minis and direct to cells and whatever, that was supposed to be a little bit under 30,000, but roughly 30,000 if you round, right? And so the idea was fill up the first satellite constellation, then we go with a second satellite constellation, bigger satellites, more capable satellites, many more of them in orbit, etc., etc. However, a bunch of these satellite launches that you see are also about replacing some of the old satellites. Because remember, the first generation constellation, they filled that up with V1.0 satellites, the V1.5 satellites. They were good at the time, but they have better satellites now, right? So we see that a bunch of these are essentially replacing some of the older satellites on the first generation. So these are not even sometimes for the other constellation of 30,000 satellites. And right now, because of the Federal Communications Commission rules, they are only allowed to launch, I believe it is 7,200 satellites to that second constellation. So you got to add to 4,400 those 7,200, which turns out to be, if I'm not mistaken, to 11,600 satellites. So right now, that's all they can put up in orbit. And they have a ways to go because they're replacing the older ones. They're launching new ones as well for the other constellation. So again, it's a whole longer conversation here, because why are they not approved to launch all 30,000 satellites? That's a whole another conversation as well. But yeah, like eventually it could be up to 34,400 satellites if they wanted to. But
And I'm a
many
big fan of This Week in Space Flight. Every Friday you can tune in and they will tell you exactly how many Starlink satellites are in orbit, how many have come back, and how many in their operational orbit. I'm telling you, I'm a huge fan of This Week in Space Flight. Be sure to watch that here at NSF. AJ, happy birthday. Apparently today's the birthday for people, so happy birthday at NASA Space Flight. It's AJ's birthday. Happy birthday. Also, Kevin, some camera fun love being support. Thanks for the great coverage. Well, thank you, Kevin. We appreciate your support. It goes to a good cause, helping out our photographers and getting coverage of all of the not just here, but also Texas and McGregor and everywhere around the world that NSF goes. Your support helps us out. Also, Eric, shout out to Owen. He's a big fan. And it's Owen's birthday. Owen Tuman, happy birthday from your friend Eric and your friends here at NSF. And Stephen coming in with joining us as a Capcom member. Welcome to the NSF family. And remember, guys, Capcom members and above get access to our Discord, our member Discord. You get a lot of behind the scenes. You get there's a multi-view during some of our larger, like our Starship streams. You get to hear what's going on between the camera operators and the controllers, and you'll hear Kevin's voice and Jay's voice and everybody, especially when we're out at Starbase. There's a ton of people involved. You get to kind of follow along in the background there with the Capcom members and above. So, Stephen, thank you. Welcome, and I expect to see you in the member chat. I want to say hi and thank you. As we come up to T-minus 10 minutes. I want to jump back to shop.nasaspaceflight.com, because as we get closer to Father's Day, there are a lot of things you can find. And one of the things that I have here on my walls are the prints, are some of the amazing photography from the NSF photographers out in the field. And just like Max is out there right now. And these prints are from their photography. And by the way, if you pay attention, and next time we're on camera, you're probably going to see this very print behind me on my wall. I'm making some changes here in my office and my broadcast studio. So yes, Max, I want to bring you in, talk about some of the photography that you have up on the store.
I mean, like you were saying, Gene, it's not just me, but also Jack and Dee and Tyler and some others have some imagery up there as well. It's a great privilege to have anything up in the store as well, and it's an even bigger one to have anyone who thinks highly enough of it to have it on their wall. So we cannot express enough gratitude for that. It's just in capturing that the one that we just had, Starlink at sunrise, was an absolute treat. It was the morning after Crew 10. We were prioritizing crew rest, so we were not streaming that one as far as memory serves. So I just rolled out of bed and I rolled out to the spot along the Indian River where where the transit was going to be. And obviously, the image speaks for itself, and the rest is history. So Julia was also out there this morning, as you can see. Alex is saying we prioritized crew rest and didn't rest. Yeah, true.
True.
But Julia was out there as well, as you can see in the middle of your screen. So both of us were out shooting that one. It's not very often that we get a launch that close to sunrise and have conditions like that. So when that happens, I think you have to get out of bed and shoot it. So it was a great.
So
morning.
this was Julia's shot here, Falcon Rise, and then yours was Falcon at sunrise.
Correct. Yeah, this one's Julia's, and then the direct transit shot we had, and that you have on your wall. Thank you, Gene. Is mine.
Yeah. I also have D. I have a big metal print. You can get them in metal. You can get them in. They come in, I guess, card. It's like a hard, heavy card stock. I'm actually having it framed right now. I have a friend of mine that owns a frame shop, and they're doing the framing for me. So they're just amazing. And by the way, part of the proceeds, the reason we do this, part of the proceeds actually goes to help that photographer. You've heard Jack say many times at Starbase, they have to rent the lenses and all kinds of stuff. So it directly supports the photography that our amazing NSF photographers bring you. And just, they're absolutely beautiful. And there's pages and pages and pages. So find the one you like, get it in the medium you like, get it framed. They're at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Now, Alex, we got to come back to you. There's the VAB. Alex, I want to come back to you as we come up to T-minus 7.5 minutes. You can see now the frost on the booster and what is happening. Obviously, the tower vent is died off, which means are we loading propellant on the second stage?
Yeah, the second stage is actually probably well over half on the liquid oxygen. It's been going off for like about 9 minutes or so. And right now, they should be preparing for the engine chill on the Merlin engines of the rocket. We'll also be wrapping up the RP1 load on the booster. That one, there's no vent, there's no any indication. It's something that, roughly happens between T-minus 7 and T-minus 6 minutes. There's not going to be also any callouts, unfortunately, but it usually happens around that time, that RP1 load on the first stage. Now, for what comes after that, we're going to have Strongback retract, T-minus 4.5 minutes. We're going to have the end of liquid oxygen load on the first and second stages, T-minus 3 and 2 minutes. And hopefully T-minus 1 minute will enter startup when the onboard computers on Falcon 9 take over control of the count. They perform multiple checks. They, bring the tank pressures up to flight pressure, all of the usual things before launch that they need to do essentially to be able to fly. And then, of course, once all of that checks out, launch director will give the go T-minus 45 seconds, and then, hopefully in 6 minutes and 12 seconds from now, we're going to get that launch here from Florida.
And as we come up on T-minus 6 minutes, Max, we're going to send you off to get us some great photography. Thanks for chatting with us this morning.
Thank you very much, everybody. It is that time, and T0 is getting close. So I will see y'all on the other side.
See you in just a little bit. Apocalypse Cow gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Thank you very much for that generosity, bringing more people in. Nibbles coming back with 10 Red Team memberships. A lot of new members joining us today for this Falcon 9. And Julian with a store message. Thank you for all you do. Let's see what Julian picked up from the store. Hopefully it's a really nice Metal print. Oh, picked up, pre-ordered some of the Flight 9 patches. I don't know how many of those are left. So I'm glad, Julian, that you got out there and picked up. You pre-order. Remember, those are going to start shipping probably the end of June. Pre-orders your patch. I did mine during Flight 9. I like doing it live on the launch just to make sure that I get them, but they go real fast. So, and by the way, if you wanted to get a previous patch from shop.nasaspaceflight.com, you can always get them in sticker form. And of course, hopefully, Adrian will do a maybe, I don't know, maybe a fridge magnet. That's something. We should be hearing at T-minus, I guess, 4.5 minutes. We're going to start listening into the launch call out. So if we get interrupted, that's what you're hearing from SpaceX. There's some SpaceX views. You can see their timer in the upper left-hand corner is in sync with ours. That's a great shot from the launch pad.
Retract has started.
And there's some of those call outs we talked about that you'll be hearing in the background. Alex, when they talk about Strongback retract, that's the launch crane gantry. It moves a couple of degrees and it moves farther and moves farther, right?
Yeah, that is the structure that sort of, it's where they rest the Falcon 9 when it is horizontal, right? And then it also helps transport the rocket out to the pad, bring it vertical, and then once it is on the pad, you may see there where sort of that venting is happening on the second stage. There's these two clamps that sort of hold it together. Of course, there are another 4 at the bottom of the rocket, but sort of allows them to not have the wind sort of wiggle around the rocket and everything. So that helps. Of course, those clamps should not be attached to the rocket at liftoff, which is why roughly at this time in the count, they open up. The Strongback retracts just 1.8 degrees. A lot of people usually ask, why is that? It's just essentially because that's sort of the shortest that they can make those umbilicals. Like, you don't want to retract all the way like they used to do back in the day. You need big, long umbilicals for that. And the longer the umbilical, the more likely that it's going to get roasted by the launch vehicle, right, at liftoff. So it just retracts one little bit and then all the way at liftoff. That makes it easier to have very short umbilicals to the rocket and therefore lower refurbishment times.
And we just got, was that a LOX load complete call out? It's a
Yep,
little,
on the first stage.
Yep. It's a little faint in the background. It's hard to hear. You can see the frost on the booster. This is booster 1083-12. And according to Alex, it is a 31 day, 6 hours, 37 minutes. And the important part, 40-second turnaround on this booster. And he's going to update that as soon as hopefully it launches here in about 2.5 minutes. Real quick, want to say happy birthday, belated birthday to 2 people. Dreamland was birthday on the 5th. Happy birthday. And also my mom's birthday was actually yesterday. So happy birthday, Mom. She is very old, just saying. But she's celebrating a happy birthday. And T-minus 2 minutes for booster 1083. What happens at 1 minute, Alex? We know that it kind of goes into the rocket takes over, right? We call that startup, or SpaceX calls that startup.
Yeah, we had there the stage 2 LOX load complete. That means second stage is now fully loaded. The entire rocket is now fully loaded. We can see the comeback, if you will, of that Strongback vent as they clear out all of the lines and everything. And as you mentioned, T-minus 1 minute, the onboard computers take over control of the count. If you remember from the shuttle, that used to be roughly T-minus 30 seconds, right? So same thing. They hand over control from the ground computers to the onboard computers. Falcon 9 is in control, and then it is able to command all of the usual final minute checks, essentially on everything ground related, rocket related. It sort of checks out everything and makes sure that everything is ready for launch. Of course, there are people in the background as well doing all of those checks as well, which is why the launch director eventually says go for launch at the roughly 45-second mark.
And we should hear that. And there's that startup call, and you're going to hear things live from the field. It takes a little bit for the sound to go from the bottom of the rocket to our microphones, but you're going to hear some of that amazing engine roar. And we should hear from the launch director here in just a few seconds. That's the call out that we really wanted to hear. The launch director go for launch. So here in about 30 seconds, hopefully, T-minus 30 seconds, we should see this We should see the rainbirds. We're not going to see them with the hedgerow, if you want to call it that. But that's what happens at the bottom of the rocket. The suppression systems, the noise suppression systems kick off, and we will see Booster 1083 take off here in just a few seconds. So we're at T-minus 10 seconds. And we should see this booster take off on its way uphill. And there's ignition and liftoff. And now let's listen in. And I do love that sound. You gotta love the roar of the engines. 9 engines lifting that Falcon 9. You could see the plume start to expand as it gets up into the thinner part of the atmosphere. But Alex, how about that vapor cone? Man.
Yeah, that was cool at max Q.
Yeah, I just blasted right through that. That was awesome. Great tracking work, by the way, guys. Booster 1083 going up. And there's a split screen with SpaceX. I don't know that are you a fan of the new graphics? I'm not there yet.
Advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah. And as it comes up, you can see the Falcon 9 plumes of those Merlin engines expanding as we come up to stage separation. It's always so much fun to see rocket launches. I love it.
Falcon 9 is following.
Should be close to main engine cutoff and stage separation. That's nice to hear as well.
And we should actually see that on the screen. You'll see, there you go. There's main engine cutoff, or a MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
And there's stage separation.
That
and
looks
there's, ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine.
There we go.
Lifting the second stage, and you heard that call out. You could just make out both of them as the booster reorients itself to land on the drone ship. Just read the instructions, which is somewhere out in the middle of the Atlantic, getting ready to catch this booster.
Should be coming up on fairing separation.
Yep. And boop.
Fairing separation confirmed.
There it is. You can see the difference between the regular V2 minis at the bottom and the direct-to-cell satellites at the top. You can even count them.
Fairing halves. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
These are we actually know the serial numbers for these fairing halves. Serial number 155 and 168. The flight numbers, it's like well over 20 flights for each of these fairing halves. They are very old. Fairing halves going to be recovered by fair recovery vessel above. Flight proven stuff, man. It's like kind of crazy.
It lowers the cost. Every time you don't have to replace something, then you can reuse it and you save that money going forward. These pictures look fantastic from SpaceX. And you can see the booster reorienting itself for its eventual re-entry burn. And I guess part of now this is the classic view that on some of the other ones, they showed the 9 engine layout in the lower left-hand corner for the booster. And you could actually see like the center engine, then 2 outer engines. And we used to just say it, you could see it from the exhaust plume from the booster, but now you can actually, they have telemetry and they show you which engines are, burning and so on.
Yeah. We don't
There's some great questions.
we don't need
coming
to
in.
be like, trust me, bro, with our audience, right?
Yeah, right.
They can just see
and
it.
I'm not going to show the one on the right because, hello, it's got one engine. So, But look at that.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
absolutely beautiful out over the Atlantic.
The blue
Now, Bob
waters.
is the ship that's going to be picking up those. Look at the difference in the water in the lower left-hand corner. What? There's a shot. We don't get a lot of shots up the booster anymore. Looking into space.
Yep. From
They
the
usually show that.
stage.
Now, look how dirty that booster is.
Yeah,
it's been refurbished 11 times, and it's like nasty up in there.
Yeah, I mean, it gets blasted all the time with that MVAC engine, right? We saw that at stage
Yeah.
separation. It separates, and then the MVAC engine ignites. The interior of that inner stage just gets blasted by the exhaust of the second stage, and of course, it's actually at a very at a moment that engine ignition process that releases a lot of soot, because it's actually when it's a lot more less ideal combustion, right? Because it's just starting up, right? And so it just creates a lot of soot, and it's essentially spraying it all over the interstage.
And
Look
we're
at
coming
that.
up on the entry burn. I love the
lens
lens
flare.
flare. Yeah.
Yeah,
Stage 1 FTS.
there we go. Entry burn underway.
And there's that graphic I was telling you about. You can see how they start the center engine and then the outer two, and it slightly changes. Look at the soot piling up on the camera. And that's basically just exhaust from that RP1 when it burns. It's just high-grade kerosene, which is a very common propellant. And there you can see the shut-off stage of the entry burn. That was a short entry burn, but that's all it needs to get back
Both
into
vehicles
the
are following nominal
atmosphere.
trajectories.
He sounds kind of bored. I'd be like, both vehicles are following nominal. I'd be really excited. He's like, both vehicles are following. I guess they just becomes the job, right, Alex? Like at some point, it's just the job until there's a reason to get excited.
I mean, it's their 488th Falcon 9, right? So it's like they've done this many times already.
Yeah, and you'll see in the lower left-hand corner the speed drop really fast, and that's the booster actually coming into the atmosphere, and you'll see the
Look at
grid
that.
fins starting to work.
Look at the
The
wall.
grid fins really start to work as this thing is coming in, and it's slowing down very
Also-
fast.
Also, the angle of attack, that attitude, that pitch that it has. You can see the horizon, right? Like, wow.
Mhm.
And it's gonna fly through the clouds. I always love that.
Yeah. Oh, there's some ice coming off the second stage. Huh. Don't see that very often.
As long as it's coming from there, not the engine. Because if it's a little bit of ice from the tank, it's okay. Probably it's from the engine.
And there's that center engine
Here we go.
coming into landing. And there you can see the drone
Stage 2
ship.
terminal guidance.
And then they have the water system on the
And
direct deck of the drone ship, and touchdown. And it is officially 1083-13 as we can see it there on the
it's some wipers
deck
there
of the drone ship. Yeah,
on the
need some
camera.
wipers. And of course, the second stage is going to continue. Look at that speed, over 25,000 kilometers per hour at 138 kilometers in altitude, and it's going to take itself up to its orbit. I had that orbit earlier. This is a Leo.
Yeah, first
There's that
first it
shutdown.
reaches sort of a parking orbit, if you will.
Mhm.
Roughly 135 by 290 kilometers or so. And then what it does is it waits again to reach that highest point in the orbit, sort of like, halfway across the world. And then it relights again that engine for just a second or two. It doesn't need that much. And that sort of brings up that lowest point of the orbit up to the required roughly 280 kilometers or so.
And now we're back to Slick 40, and all of that took less than 9 minutes. And of course, the second stage is going to be deploying those satellites And then they will use their thrusters to get to their operational orbit. And again, if you want to know how many are up there and how many have re-entered, check out This Week in Spaceflight every Friday here at NSF. Be sure to set your notifications to watch that. Dave went out to the store, picked something up. He says, love your broadcasts. Love your broadcasts. Yes, I've had coffee and artwork. Great photography. Picked up a Flight 6 patch. Dave, thank you. Are you collecting them? I'm collecting them. I have a couple of stickers because I missed some of the early ones. But like you, probably been watching NSF for a very, very long time. We've got some replays. Max, I guess you're back after this launch. We're going to get some replays up for you guys here in just a little bit. And again, if you are expecting to see the Axiom 4 launch this morning, that has been delayed until no earlier than tomorrow morning. Alex, for those that are just joining and wondering, hey, was that a Starlink or was that Axiom? That was Starlink 1224. Give us the short version of why Axiom 4 mission was moved to tomorrow.
Yeah, it was due to recovery weather for the case of an abort during launch for the Crew Dragon. You don't want the crew already after having escaped a very bad situation, having them in rough weather. It's not good for them. It's not good for the capsule as well, because there are limits in the loads and everything that it can take. There was high winds downrange, so that was no go for the launch. The launch weather actually, it was really fantastic. If I'm not mistaken, it was like just 95% probability of favorable conditions, or like near perfect conditions, near ideal conditions, essentially. Same deal today for the Starlink at the beginning of the window, which is when they launched today. It was also great weather, which is why they launched today with the Starlink, but not the Axiom. Axiom has crew, and those, abort conditions were not good for them.
I have some specific Falcon 9 questions. Severin wants to know, at NASA Spaceflight, can the MVAC be throttled, Alex?
Yep. Usually around 60% is sort of the minimum throttle.
But they do that on the Merlin engines. I know that they throttle down to get through max Q, and then they throttle it back up. So we know that it can. But when the second stage, do they just go like full send? I mean, are they watching that? Or are they like, we hear them say MVAC ignition and then just 100% go to get to that operational orbit? There's no real need to throttle it. I guess on the second burn, but depending upon how they want to adjust their orbit, they can say, hey, we're going to do a 3-second burn at 75% or something like that, right?
Yeah, all of the Merlin engines can throttle, all of them. The sea levels, the MVACs, they can throttle them. The sea levels can throttle a little bit further down because they're used for landing and whatever. The MVAC engine, it's a little bit less, but still can be throttled down to 60%.
And I don't know how much you know about drone ships, but John Ferris wants to know, at NASA Spaceflight, is there a reason why, and I never noticed this, is there a reason why drone ships on the East Coast are aligned left to right, while on the West Coast it's up and down? I think we see means north to south, east to west. I never noticed that. I'm going to have to start paying attention to drone ships when I'm watching the drone ship recoveries.
Yeah, up and down is a very recent thing. It's not just on the West Coast. We've seen that on a few launches here from the East Coast as well. It's just less common because on the West Coast it seems like it's on every single landing, whereas here it's like very sporadic kind of thing. But yeah, it's been happening lately. It's always being left to right, the orientation. And now suddenly there's a few of these landings are happening with the drone ship up and down. I don't know why.
Yeah, but does it? I mean, I think that would have to do with the sea conditions rather than the rocket orientation on landing, because to the rocket, it's just aiming for a rectangle in the ocean. The ocean determines, like, trying to keep it as level as possible, maybe, where the waves are,
given, because we have the replays ready, so I don't want to, keep on this for a long time. But given the fact that every single other launch before this, like for hundreds of landings, it's always been the same orientation relative to the drone ship, I'm thinking that something else is here being in the mix, right? And so, I wouldn't say it's fully about the waves and whatever, or even the trajectories and things like that, because we've seen exact same missions before launched and landing, in the same orientation. But yeah, anyways.
Interesting. Might be some fun to do some research on that. Let's roll some of these good-looking replays, Jay. This is on the left there, the press site, Max. Is that right?
That looks to be about right. Yeah, this is one of the robot cameras that we have planted on top of the hut. You can see Falcon 9 climbing up above the tree line there into some low-level clouds. That is very common at this time of year in Florida. These just tend to be moving through. But it's worth noting as well that all of our replays are at the press site today.
Sexy replays. I need that on a shirt, Adrian.
Very scenic with the clouds in the background, it has to be said.
Yeah. I also love the NASA logo.
Oh, yeah.
I like replays. Now, this is one of your cameras, right, Max?
Yep, this is the wider camera that we have stationed up over here just to give a more, I guess, a wider perspective of the foreground and initial launch.
Alex, I have a question. This is Gene asking the question at NASA Spaceflight. We talked about, this is the close-up shot from Max. As we talk about the future of Falcon 9, do you think they'll ever have any international launch recovery sites?
I'm not so sure about Falcon 9. Starship, though, we may have some of those point to point. Speaking of which,
here's some audio.
Sound.
There's that vapor cone.
A very prominent one today, it has to be said. There must be a lot of moisture in the atmosphere today.
Yeah, it looked like it ripped through one, and then there was another one, and now it's getting up into that colder part where you can start to see the trail. There was a question earlier about, it said multiple vapor cones, and yeah, I mean, once it gets up there, it just starts to push through. Max Q. Now, Max, I can never hear what they call the VAB squeal. What exactly is that? Just real quick.
It's essentially just the sound waves coming off of Falcon 9 at just the right angle to reverb off of the actual panels that line the exterior of the VAB at such a frequency that it squeals. So it's a lot more prominent in person, and our local recordings here on the camera also pick them up a lot better. But sometimes they are very prominent on stream, and then other times when, if say the wind's blowing in the wrong direction, they're not. But today was one of the weaker ones. That has to be said.
Yeah. Well, Max, I appreciate you being out there. Max Evans, go and check out his prints at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. And for the amazing camera reviews, Max, appreciate it.
Thank you as always, everybody, and we will see you again hopefully tomorrow morning for the launch of Ax-4 to the International Space Station.
And of course, answering all your questions, the one and only Alex from NSF. Alex, appreciate you being here this morning.
It's been a pleasure as usual.
And if you want to keep up with all of the updates, be sure to check all of our socials. They are going to pop up on the screen. Get all your notifications. When we have an update, we will give you the update on one of our social media platforms of your choice. I want to thank Jay Keegan for pressing the buttons and flipping the switches in the background, in the production room, and all of the production staff here at NSF. Thank you guys for being here, all of the amazing support that came through this morning. Hopefully Axiom goes tomorrow morning. We will see you at the next one. I'm Gene Rowley. Remember, from everybody here at NSF, dream big and keep your eyes on the stars.
And here we go.
We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
Yeah, chamber pressure looks good.
Subwindow. Roger, Atlantic.
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FTE off. Say again, FTE off. Off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Décollage. What is it? Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting with the flare, correct?